This story is about my mother and a glass jar of coins that sat above our fridge for 11 years. I used to think that jar was money. It took me 30 years to see it was fear and that she'd handed it down to me. She raised me alone from when I was 6. One income, one kid, zero margin. I did the math as an adult once. Rent, food, my school shoes, and I still don't understand how the numbers closed. They didn't. She closed them with herself. Every evening, whatever coins survived the day went into the jar. Not for anything, for just in case. That jar was her entire financial system, visible, countable, touchable. Banks lose things, jars don't. Here's a detail I didn't decode until my 20s. She always ate after I finished. Said she preferred it. She was checking if I'd want seconds, because seconds for me meant dinner for her was bread. I got new shoes every school year. Photos prove it. In those same photos, her sandals don't change for 6 years. Sacrifice isn't loud. It's a background detail you spot 20 years later and suddenly can't breathe. Our house had a currency of phrases. We'll see meant no. Maybe on Eid meant no. When things settle meant never. She never once said, "We're poor." She protected me from the word while drowning in the math. Rent lived in an envelope behind the mirror, untouchable, sacred. I once watched her put money in while her tooth ached. The dentist money went to the envelope. The tooth waited a year. Housing before health. That's triage, not budgeting. 2 jobs, no sick days, no complaints where I could hear them. I thought that was strength, and it was. But unbroken endurance teaches a kid something dangerous, that rest is a luxury, and money only comes from suffering. She had no pension, no investments, no safety net. She had me. Nobody said it out loud, but I felt it by 12. I wasn't just her son, I was her portfolio. Every report card was an earnings call. Here's the thing about money lessons. The loudest ones are never spoken. I didn't inherit her poverty. I inherited something stickier, her relationship with money. And that inheritance came with interest. Psychologists say our money blueprint is mostly set by age 7. Not from lectures, from watching. Money lessons are caught, not taught, and I caught every single one of hers. In our house, money wasn't opportunity. It was danger. Every knock could be the landlord. Every letter could be a bill. I learned that money is the thing whose absence hurts you, never the thing that builds you. Buying anything non-essential came wrapped in guilt. Even needed things got apologized for. I know it's expensive, but she'd say it to shopkeepers, to herself. Spending equaled sinning, and everything was confession. Saving wasn't a strategy. It was armor against a world that had already proven hostile. You don't save toward something. You save against something. There's a canyon between those two, and I lived on the wrong rim for years. My grandfather lost everything in a bank collapse before I was born. So our money hid in jars, envelopes, and stitched cushion seams. Investing? That was gambling for rich people. The stock market was a casino where people like us paid the lights. When I said I wanted to be a pilot, she said, "Be practical." Not from cruelty, from insurance. Small dreams can't crash. She taught me to pre-shrink every ambition so the world couldn't shrink it for me. One phrase ran our home like a constitution. People like us. People like us don't invest, don't start businesses, don't take risks. 4 words that put a ceiling on 3 generations. The rare time we ate out, she'd read the menu right to left. Prices first. I watched her face do arithmetic before it did appetite. 25 years later, I caught my own face doing the same math, on a date I could easily afford. Let me be fair to her, because this matters. Her fear was earned. Life had actually been that unforgiving. Her scripts weren't irrational, they were receipts from real events. Trauma is just memory with a security system. So I graduated from her school of silent money lessons with honors. Straight A's in fear, guilt, hiding, and shrinking. And then I walked into an adult life those lessons were never built for. Fast forward. Good degree, good job, good salary. On paper, I'd escaped. In my head, the landlord still knocked. I earned 5 times what she ever did and felt exactly as poor as we'd been. Turns out you can outrun the poverty and still carry the wiring. My version of the jar? A checking account I refused to touch. No investments. Banks and markets couldn't be trusted, remember? 6 figures, sitting still, being quietly eaten by inflation. I was hoarding coins above the fridge with extra steps. I caught myself apologizing while buying a coat. A coat. In winter. Sorry, I know it's a lot, to a cashier who did not care. That was her voice coming out of my mouth. Inheritance doesn't ask permission. Every menu, every website, every store, my eyes auto-sorted price low to high, not once asking what I wanted. Deal hunting felt like virtue. But a reflex isn't a value. It's a scar with good PR. Payday should feel good. Mine triggered audits. More money meant more to lose, more to protect, more midnight math. Studies show money anxiety barely correlates with income after a point, because the anxiety was never about the amount. It's about the story. You've heard how I hid spending from Maya. Here's the prequel. I hid it from myself first. Deleted receipts, avoided statements. If the girlfriend's story was financial infidelity, this was the training ground. Shame learned at a kitchen table in 1999. I'd cover a friend's dinner without blinking, then agonize 3 weeks over headphones. Spending on others felt noble. Spending on myself felt like theft. From her, somehow. From the jar. Guilt doesn't check whose money it is. Added up and scarcity thinking cost me more than scarcity ever did. Years out of the market. Underpriced work. Because people like us don't negotiate. Cheap things bought twice. Fear, it turns out, is the most expensive subscription I've ever had. One day my nephew asked me for ice cream money, and I heard myself say, "We'll see." The full sentence, her exact melody. I stood there, frozen, watching the inheritance reach for the next kid in line. Generational money trauma doesn't mail itself forward. It needs a courier. Someone who repeats the phrases, models the flinch, hands over the fear with the feeding. I was the courier. And I decided to lose the package. It started with a visit home. She was in the kitchen, and above the fridge, the jar, still there, full. After all these years of me sending money home, the coins were still being counted into glass. That's when I finally asked questions. The money I'd been sending for years, for her comfort, for her rest, untouched. Every transfer saved for you, for later, just in case. I sent her escape money, and she used it to build a thicker bunker. Fear doesn't retire just because the danger did. Then she showed me the shoebox. Inside, little notebooks going back 25 years, every rupee, every day, in her careful schoolgirl handwriting. Milk, bus, shoes for him. A quarter-century of survival, documented like evidence for a trial that never came. I sat on the kitchen floor and read my whole childhood in numbers. My birthday parties, line items, my school trips, 3 months of squeezed groceries. Things I'd bragged about at school had 2-month shadows in those pages. 25 years of ledgers, and one column never appeared. Her. No cinema, no new shawl, no cup of tea outside the house. I searched years for a single entry that was just for her. The most expensive thing in those books was her absence from them. We romanticize parental sacrifice, and we should honor it. but nobody itemizes it. Her sacrifice had a price tag. Her health, her tooth, her 20s, 30s, and 40s. She gave me everything isn't poetry. It's an unpaid invoice. I asked her, "How much do you have? Total?" She didn't know. Money that isn't safety in a jar had no meaning to her. She could tell you the price of onions in 2003, but not whether she could stop working. That's what fear does. It counts everything and knows nothing. She was 61 and still taking sewing work. Not because the math required it. My transfers alone were enough. Because stopping felt like standing on nothing. Work was the only floor she'd ever trusted. And then she said the thing that broke me. "I know I made you scared about money. I saw it in you last visit. I'm sorry. It's the only way I knew." She'd diagnosed us both before I ever did. Mothers usually have. So there we were, 2 adults, 1 kitchen, 1 glass jar, 2 patients with the same disease at different stages. And I realized the fix couldn't be. That night we talked money for 6 hours. First time ever. Not amounts, feelings. Her father's bankruptcy, the collapse. My father leaving with the savings. The nights she cried after I slept. The ledgers were the transcript. That night was the trial. She kept saying, "I should have done better." 25 years of heroics, and her headline was shame. That's the cruelest part of money trauma. It bills the victim. She felt guilty for surviving imperfectly a situation nobody should survive alone. I took the jar down and thanked it, out loud. Sounds ridiculous. It wasn't. That jar got us through 3 actual emergencies. The strategies that hurt me as an adult had saved me as a child. You can be grateful for armor and still take it off. Here's the reframe that changed everything for me. Her fear was love with no budget. Every no, every "we'll see," every flinch, that was her body blocking the world for me. The problem was never the love. It's that fear doesn't know when the war ends. So I told her, in these words, "The war is over. We won. You can come out now." She laughed. Then she cried. Then she asked, and I'll never forget this, "How do you know it won't come back?" That question is the whole disease in 9 words. My answer? We'd make safety a number instead of a feeling. Feelings lie. Hers always said danger, no matter the balance. So we did the math together. Her expenses, my support, a buffer. The number said, "You never have to sew for money again." She didn't believe it. Yet. At 61, my mother met her first spreadsheet. We put every ledger total in it. When the chart came up, her quarter century of survival, visualized, she touched the screen like it was a photograph of someone she'd lost. In a way, it was. Remember, every dollar gets a name? We named hers. Rent, covered. Medicine, covered. And then new names she'd never used. Rest, tea outside, a trip to her sister. She argued with every single one. We kept them anyway. Then, carefully, we broke the oldest rule in our family. We invested. A tiny, boring, insured amount. She watched me do it, gripping her shawl like I was juggling knives. "People like us don't do this," she whispered. "They do now," I said. That night I resigned as courier of the family fear. Both of us, actually. She from sending it, me from carrying it. The parcel stops here. What we passed forward instead is the rest of this story. What followed was the strangest school ever. 2 students, 2 teachers, 1 kitchen. I taught her compounding, buffers, interest. She taught me something I couldn't download anywhere. How to feel enough. Fair trade. Maybe I got the better deal. I explained compound interest with her roti dough. Fold it, it doubles. Fold again, it doubles again. She got it in 11 seconds. Then she said, "So the jar was dough I never folded." 61 years old, and she out-metaphored every finance channel on this platform. Assignment 1. Buy something useless. Pure joy, zero utility. It took 3 weeks. She came home with a small blue vase, guilty as a shoplifter. It sits where the jar used to. That vase cost $4 and repaired 40 years. My assignment, set by her. Buy the good headphones and don't apologize to anyone, including myself. I typed, "Sorry, it's a lot," to the cashier in my head anyway. Habit. But I deleted it. Progress isn't silence. It's catching the sentence before it lands. Hardest lesson for her. Rest without guilt. A nap wasn't laziness. Tea with neighbors wasn't waste. 60 years of money only comes from suffering doesn't undo in a week. We started with 10-minute permissions, then afternoons. Then she stopped asking. Every Tuesday we talk for 20 minutes. Not, did you spend too much? The opposite. What did you spend on yourself? Is question 1. If the answer is nothing, that's the problem to fix. The audit checks for joy, not leaks. Yes, it's the money date, exported to my mother. Month 4, she took her last paid sewing order. We retired the machine like an athlete's jersey, cleaned it, covered it, put it up high. It's not gone, it's honored. There's a difference, and she needed the machine to know it too. Then came her masterstroke. On a call, I mentioned skipping a friend's wedding. Flights were pricey. Silence. Then, the war is over, remember? My own medicine, administered with a mother's aim. I booked the flight. Teachers don't retire, they just change classrooms. Neither of us fixed ourselves fully. That's not how inherited wiring works. She still counts coins sometimes. I still sort by price. But now we catch each other, laugh, and choose again. Recovery isn't the absence of reflexes. It's the presence of a witness. And the jar? It didn't go to the trash. Are you mad? It went to a shelf with a new label, in her handwriting. For ice cream with grandchildren. Same glass, opposite instruction. That's the whole journey in one container. Now the practical part. Because this isn't just my mother's story. It's probably yours, dressed differently. Step 1. Audit your scripts. Write down every money phrase from your childhood home, word for word. We can't afford it. Money doesn't grow on trees. People like us. Step 2. Find your flinch. Where does your body react to money before your brain does? Menus? Statements? Asking for a raise? The flinch marks the exact spot where someone else's fear was installed. You can't rewire what you can't locate. Step 3. This one's surgical. Separate the lesson from the fear. Save consistently is a lesson. Keep it. Saving because the world is about to end is fear. Retire it. Same behavior, different fuel. The fuel decides whether money runs your life or serves it. Don't wage war on your parents' methods. Thank them. Those methods got your family through actual events. Gratitude first, retirement second. Armor that saved a child will suffocate an adult. Both things are true, and healing requires holding both. Turn every vague dread into arithmetic. Scared of collapse? Calculate the actual buffer that survives one. Scared of job loss? Count the runway months. Fear is a fog. Numbers are headlights. The monster shrinks every time you measure it. Rebuild trust with money the way you'd rebuild trust with a person. Small promises, kept repeatedly. One boring index investment. One negotiated bill. One priced-checked dream that turns out affordable. 10 small proofs beat one grand gesture. Compounding works on courage, too. Schedule joy spending like a bill. Yes, schedule it, because if guilt is your default, spontaneity will always lose. A fixed monthly amount, pre-forgiven, pre-approved, for pure enjoyment. It's not waste. It's physiotherapy for a cramped muscle. And the big one, have the conversation. Ask your parents what money was like in their childhood home. Not their advice, their story. You'll hear your own reflexes being manufactured decades before your birth. Empathy for them is the fastest debugger for you. If they'll let you, teach back. Patiently. A parent learning safety from their child completes a circuit that fear kept open for generations. It will feel role-reversed and awkward. Do it anyway. Some inheritances flow upstream. Nobody throws a parade when a generational cycle breaks. It breaks quietly, in a $4 vase, a booked flight, "we'll see," swallowed and replaced with "let's check." Small rooms, small sentences. That's where lineages turn. Remember the unpaid invoice, her decades, her tooth, her deferred life? Here's what I learned. You can't pay it back in money. I tried. She jarred it. The only accepted currencies were time, honesty, and letting her see me unafraid. So that's what I pay in now. At 62, my mother saw the sea for the first time. 3 days, her sister, a guest house. Total cost? Less than my headphones. She sent me 11 photos of the same wave. I have expensive things. I own nothing worth more than photo number 7. My mother tips now. Generously, even. The woman who read menus right to left leaves something extra. Because the girl works hard, like I did. Healing looks exactly like this. Your old wound, recognized in a stranger, answered with abundance instead of fear. And me? The hoarded checking account finally became a portfolio. Boring index funds, automatic, untouched, dough, folding quietly. 20 years late is the second best time. The wiring that kept me out of the market cost me more than any crash would have. I renegotiated my rate last year, twice. Where did the nerve come from? Simple. I'd watched a 61-year-old woman unlearn her deepest fear at a kitchen table. After that, asking a client for market rate stopped qualifying as courage. My nephew asked again, by the way. This time I said, "Yes, and you're getting 2 scoops, and here's why. Because we can, and knowing what you can afford is the whole game." He just heard yes and ran. But the sentence was for the kid I used to be. Our family talks money at the table now. Openly. Prices, mistakes, plans, fears. The silence that raised me is gone. Kids in our family will grow up hearing money discussed like weather. A thing you plan around, not a thing you hide from. I won't sell you a perfect ending. Some nights the old math still wakes me. She still slips coins somewhere, I'm sure. Fear visits. It built the house. It knows the locks. But it doesn't live here anymore, and it doesn't get a vote. People think money heals money trauma. It doesn't. I had money and stayed sick. What healed us was the conversation the money made safe to have. Wealth's real job was buying the room where fear could finally be discussed. That's it. The talking did the rest. The metric I'm proudest of, out of everything on this channel. My mother sleeps through the night now. No 2 a.m. arithmetic. No inventory of dangers. Whatever else compounding has done for me, that's the return I'd show off. Last month I sat in her kitchen again. Same table where 6-year-old me learned fear. Same table where 61-year-old her unlearned it. Tables hold more curriculum than schools. Choose carefully what gets taught at yours. We had the shoebox ledgers scanned and bound into a single book. Title? Her idea. How We Made It. 25 years of survival math, upgraded from evidence for a trial to family scripture. The same numbers, retold as victory instead of shame. The final page of that book is blank, on purpose. She says it's for whoever needs to start counting someday, so they know counting can end well. A blank page as an heirloom. I've never seen wealth transferred more precisely. The blue vase has company now. A shell from her sea trip, a photo of the wave, a cinema stub. A shelf of useless things in a house that never allowed useless. Every object on it is a receipt for a repaired year. Then, quietly, she asked how my savings were doing. Not with fear, with curiosity. First time in our lives, money entered a sentence between us without dread attached. We talked returns like other families talk cricket. Casual, boring even. Boring was the miracle. Her one instruction to me, as the family's new money elder: teach the children different. Not careless, different. Enough fear to check the math, enough courage to live the life. That's a complete financial philosophy in 2 lines. Frame it. So the inheritance got rewritten. Out. The flinch, the guilt, the ceiling, people like us. In. The ledger discipline, the resilience, the dough that folds, the jar that buys ice cream. We kept the steel. We returned the fear. Someday, kids in this family will inherit money. Fine. But the real bequest is already packed. A table where money is discussed in daylight. A book that says survival ends. And a jar with ice cream instructions. Assets appreciate. So do stories if you fix them first. Let the record say it plainly. A woman with 2 jobs, 1 child, and a glass jar beat odds that break most people. Then, at 61, had the humility to relearn everything. She's not the backstory of my finance channel. She's the whole thesis. And if you audited our family today, the richest line isn't in any account. It's her, at the sea, tipping generously, sleeping through the night, saving coins for grandchildren's ice cream. Compound interest, of the only kind that matters. So, the takeaways, and this time they're personal. 1. Your money story started decades before your first paycheck. You're living a script with earlier authors. That's not blame, it's just the reason willpower alone keeps failing you. 2. Write down the money phrases of your childhood. All of them. Read them slowly. Circle the ones you still obey. That circle is your real budget. It allocates your fear before you allocate a single dollar. 3. Whatever strategies your family used, jars, hiding, hoarding, silence, they were armor for a real war. Honor them. Then check if your war is over. Armor in peacetime isn't protection. It's just weight. 4. When fear and math disagree, run the math twice and trust it once. Buffers, runways, totals. Safety must be a number, because if it's a feeling, trauma will forge the signature every time. 5. If guilt runs your spending, put joy on the calendar with a budget line of its own. Pre-approved, pre-forgiven. A cramped muscle needs assigned exercise. A $4 vase can beat a therapist, occasionally. 6. Call your parents. Ask what money was like when they were small. Don't advise. Just listen for the moment your own reflexes get explained. Then, maybe, teach back, gently. Some cycles only break upstream. 7. Earning more will not fix a broken money story. I've proven this personally, with receipts. Money just amplifies the script it's handed. Fix the script. Then let the money compound something worth compounding. Because it was never about the jar, or the ledgers, or the envelope behind the mirror. It was about a love so under-resourced it could only speak in sacrifice, and a debt that could only be settled in healing. We settled it. This is wealth mechanics, money stories with the gears exposed. The best friend, the father, her, and now the woman who started it all. Subscribe, the family album isn't finished. As always, this is a story, not a prescription. For real decisions, talk to a qualified professional. And tonight, maybe, talk to your mother. Good night.